Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, Supporting Youth in Navigating a Digital World. My name's Kim Driscoll, and I'm going to be your host this evening. But before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that we, the New Brunswick Adoption Foundation, are a provincial entity. We acknowledge that we carry out our work on the traditional unceded territory of the Wolastoq, Mi'kmaq, and Passamaquoddy peoples. This territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship, which these nations first signed with the British Crown in 1726. The treaties did not deal with the surrendering of lands and resources, but in fact recognized Mi'kmaq and Wolastoq titles and established the rules for what was to be an ongoing relationship between the nations. We, the staff and the members of the board, pay respect to the elders, past and present, and strive to develop closer relationships with the Indigenous people in New Brunswick. As an organization focused on vulnerable children in the care system, we express these words with both humility and hope. So tonight, our goal is to explore how young people engage with online platforms, their strengths, their vulnerabilities, and the changes that they might face. I'm very excited to have Ashley MacDonald here with us to help us understand this topic a bit more. But before we dive into our discussion, guys, I want to take a moment to remind everyone about our network and some upcoming program. So NBAF, the New Brunswick Adoption Foundation, is a nonprofit organization that aims to promote and advocate for children in the permanent care of the province. And our vision is that every child or youth in the permanent care of the province finds permanent family. So on our website, you can find a list of our upcoming programs, such as Late Night Talks on April 19th, While You're Waiting in French on April 15th, and Riding the Wave on April 17th. A couple of housekeeping items now. So to get the most out of this presentation, I really encourage you guys to switch to speaker view. And to find that, you can go to your top right-hand corner and you'll see that there's 3 dots there, and you can choose what type of view that you would like to view this under tonight. So we love engagement here, and Ashley and I have spoke about this right before this, and she loves engagement too. So we really want you to use the chat, put in your questions, and we get to answer those questions throughout the night, right? So not all of them have to wait till the end of the night. So if you have something on your mind, feel free to put it in there, and Ashley's going to love to answer it right at that time. So feel free to use the raise hand button on the bottom of your screen as well. And if you're following live on our Facebook group, go ahead and ask your questions there as well. At the end of the presentation, we'll be turning off our live video for the Q&A session. If you're joining us live, please do register for future webinars if you'd like to take part in those sessions. At the end of the webinar, we are going to have a really brief poll, like literally under 60 seconds. We'd greatly appreciate it if you could take a moment to answer those 5 questions, because all feedback is so invaluable to us. Okay, and now I'm going to hand you right over to Ashley. Welcome, Ashley.
Thanks so much. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for spending a Thursday evening at 8 o'clock with us together to learn about this important topic. Definitely means you have some young people that are in your heart and in your mind, and hopefully you'll get some good information and skills and resources tonight to support them in their digital lives. Okay, so we'll get started. My name is Ashley MacDonald, and I'm the Youth and Employment Services Manager at YWCA Moncton. And part of that work is leading our Brave YW project. So I'll spend a few minutes at the start of the presentation just talking a little bit about Brave. Maybe there's some kiddos, youth, young humans you want to refer to Brave, or just to know that it's there in the community. I am also a social worker by profession, and I've spent 20 plus years working with youth across Canada, and in particular youth with complex traumas. That's my jam. I really, really love it. And I'm also a mom. I'm here with many hats. I'm also a mom of a 5-year-old. So I like to say that in particular with this presentation, because I'm going to give everybody a lot of good information and pro tips, parenting strategies, and I realize that it's not easy. It's like, what am I going to do? So my kiddo's 5 right now. What am I going to do in the next coming years when she's starting to ask for all these things? I understand that how it plays out is not as easy as me just delivering these tips here. So make it make sense for your families and your households. But lots of great information coming. And I also like to mention that it's a strength-based presentation. So all the work we do at the YW is strength-based. And I think a lot of folks use that, and it's becoming a bit of a catch term, but really for how we use it is it's the opposite of deficit based. So when we're talking about setting up household expectations, and especially around internet use or anything around your home and with your family, it's kind of the opposite of going, don't do this, and saying do this. It's not don't hit, it's hands are for hugging. So it's the positive version of whatever message you're trying to deliver. And not that everything's positive in the world. It's not supposed to be false positivity, but that's really the spirit that we approach youth work. And that is going to be embedded in how we deliver the strategies throughout the presentation. Actually, I don't think there is an overview of Brave at the start of this one. So we'll go through the topics here, the list, and then I'll tell you a bit about Brave. So we're going to talk about youth social media habits and why they're important to know. Um, and I'm sure, unless there are youth here, I think we might think we know a lot about how youth use the internet, but they're always going to be a step ahead of us, the youth. It's so different than how we might have used the internet even 10 years ago. I'm willing to bet there's some safe grown-ups here who didn't have the internet at younger ages. And social media has progressed so much. There's a lot to learn. And I really like to point out that one of the biggest protective factors that we can do with any youth, let alone vulnerable youth, is having good connectivity. So the Brave project is our anti-trafficking project. So we work with all youth, but we mentor youth who have vulnerabilities towards exploitation. And just being a youth makes you vulnerable to be exploited or trafficked. So we work to build protective factors so that hopefully youth don't experience that. And for youth who might have experienced that, they're often referred to the program, and we work directly with them as well. And then the other piece of the Brave YW project is working in the community to raise the community's capacity to recognize and respond to cases of youth sexual exploitation and human trafficking. And this is part of that work. So when we're talking about keeping kids safe online, that's a protective factor towards human trafficking and exploitation. And I always say, so if you were here in February, we did like a human trafficking and youth sexual exploitation presentation. There will be some overlap in the presentation today, but today's just much more focused on helping kiddos navigate the digital stuff. But if you were in that presentation, I'll say it then as well, is good connections with a young person is a key protective factor to keeping them safe. Because if they're going to take off with the boyfriend or the girlfriend or something along those lines, us saying, no, don't do it, please don't go, might not stop them. But if they leave, what might bring them back is that good connectivity. So it's them knowing that it's their home no matter what. You love them, like you always want them to come home. So even if all the terrible, awful things happen, that is the foundation that we want them walking on top of, that they're loved and that they always have a safe place to go to. And that is the folks here. So good connectivity is an incredible protective factor in general, and certainly when we're talking about vulnerable youth and exploitation. So when we're talking about social media habits, why they're important to know, keep that connectivity piece in mind. We're going to spend a few minutes talking about trending apps, but I will say I don't spend a ton of time on it. And often when I come into different organizations and I do this presentation, there's an ask for that. Like, can you go through all the apps and what they do? Can you create like a one pager? And the fact of the matter is that it just gets outdated so fast, and it's going to be outdated before I know it's outdated because I'm not a youth. So I do follow up with a resource list after the presentation, so it'll come out in the coming days. And it's got good resources on there for folks who specialize in that, staying on top of what's trending with apps and whatnot. But we'll spend a few minutes going over kind of some of the hot ones, the ones I hear youth talking about and that are trending. We're going to focus quite a bit on sextortion and luring and grooming, talk about consent and online safety plans, and reporting and talking to youth about reporting, which is really kind of the heart around the reporting piece here, and then some resources. Um, and of course, a few disclaimers when we're talking about these sensitive topics. One, if you start to realize that, maybe there's some exploitive things happening with someone that you're supporting or someone that you know or someone you're working with, you can certainly reach out to us at the YW. You can reach out to some of the resources we'll go over tonight. But I do encourage you not to bring up personal stories in the main part of this presentation that's being hosted live on Facebook and here, and it'll be recorded just for safety and privacy. There is a question period if you're in the Zoom part of this presentation where you could ask. I would still say anonymize it a bit. I know this young person or I know this person without identifying them. And then if you want more of a needs assessment and kind of like one-to-one consultation on what might be happening, you can reach out to us at the YW. And then some other general disclaimers I like to give in this work, same as if you were in the first one, is when we're talking about exploitation or human trafficking, which is not necessarily what we're here to do tonight, it is not uncommon to think that everybody's experiencing this. So you might start to think that everybody's sending nudes or everyone's being trafficked or everyone's going to experience sextortion. And that's really, really not the case. And it's part of me doing strength-based work is I'm not here to scare anyone. If you have kiddos in your life, if you are a parent, I always say you're already scared. You're already worried about your kid. Fear just compounds fear. I'm not here to scare anyone. We already worry about our kids and we want the best for them. So certainly if you feel that way, you learn some information, you learn some more down the road, and you start to feel like, oh, everyone's being trafficked, or if my kid is online, they're going to be sextorted, or even if sending nudes is always exclusively bad, because that's also not the case. I really want you to ground yourself in that that's not the case. There's plenty of good men in the world if you're driving that feelings towards men, and just ground yourself in the fact that that's not the case. That might seem silly, but these are one of the things that we were actually trained in when we started doing our anti-trafficking work, that these are common experiences that you start to think everybody's out there doing it, and it's not the case. And my facilitation style, Kim did go over it, and I just want to reiterate that it's popcorn style, question style for me. If you want to say something, contribute to the conversation, no hurt feelings. I love it when people interrupt me to engage. So I prefer that you even ask while it's fresh and we're in that part of the presentation, but certainly you can wait. We'll have a questions period afterwards as well, and you can put it in the chat. Okay, so why is it important to understand how youth utilize the digital world? First and foremost, like I said earlier, it's quite a bit different than how we do or we did. So my context growing up with the internet came into my house in middle school ages. This was dial-up, and I was the first kid in my school to have internet in my house because my dad's pretty geeky. So we had those in really, really early days. So that's to say that certainly my parents didn't have any more notion of how to use it, how to stay safe, how to coach me or me and my brother, how to stay safe on the internet. It was kind of a free for all. And it was dial-up. So it was just all very, very different. There was chat rooms. I don't know if people remember ICQ. I mean, the things I was doing on ICQ were I should have been supervised, but what did we know? Not much. So anyways, that's the context. So if I compare my experience as a middle schooler to middle schoolers today, I mean, it's just what's the point, right? It's night and day. It's apples and oranges. And young people are vulnerable. So we may or may not know, I mean, young people's brains, I often say middle school teenagers, their brains are literally saying that what other people think about them is the most, what other peers think about them is the most important thing in the world to them. So we impose all this great advice and wisdom on them, do this and don't do that, and all these things. And then their peers can say anything and they might go along with that. And that's just what their brains are telling them to do, and that's not their fault. But then we equip them with the whole wide world and all the information and all the truths and half truths and fake news, and we hope for the best. So they're very vulnerable to be interacting with these complex systems, but they are, and their whole lives are embedded in it. So this is another thing that we'll unpack throughout the presentation is we often recommend that caregivers consider not taking away the internet as a punishment, if you will, punishment not being strength-based language, um, because their whole lives are on there. And that's how the world really, like, what can you do as a youngster? Not, I mean, a youngster, but let's talk about teenagers and middle schoolers. What can they do? They will be limited. So we talk about ways we could options of not taking it away exclusively, because often actually when we take away the internet, we're not doing the protective thing that we think we're doing, and we risk shutting down the connection. That's a lot. We're going to unpack that, but there's a lot to understanding how they interact with it, and it's very different than ours. Like they need it for school. Sometimes they need it for sports teams. All their friends are on there. I like to tell the story. About 2 years ago, I was at Olton's doing the human trafficking presentation to I forget what class it was. Maybe their human services practitioner class, and I was telling them that I thought it was crazy that Google at the time uh, has the busiest site traffic in the world. So there's no other sites that have more daily site traffic than Google. But around that time, TikTok started to outpace Google, which rocked my world. How could anything outpace Google? So they were kind of going one and two for a while. And I was telling the students this as it was like, oh my God, you guys, have you heard? I mean, they had heard. They were like, okay, Ashley, old news. And they were like, actually, they use it as a search engine, TikTok. So one of the students put up her hand and said she did her research for her assignments on TikTok. So, like, what is human trafficking? Like, exactly how you would utilize Google, they use TikTok for. And I was like, your teacher's in the room. You should not be saying this. How are you sourcing that? But I mean, this was 2 years ago. And I see, Kim, your mouth is open. I know, right? Like,
Yeah.
I did not know this. So, and I am like, it's my job to stay trending with the trends. And I'm still amazed by that. So, if we're not keeping up with the youth, and how do we keep up with the youth in their digital worlds? It's really maintaining that connection and being where the youth are. And we'll talk about that. But they are the vulnerability is so high, and we don't even understand all the ways that they manipulate the internet, such as using TikTok as a search engine. And of course, what we know, and there will be some information and resources on the follow-up email, is that the internet builds algorithms, right? So it's going to start feeding us what we like, and the content that we're looking at. It's going to give us more of that. So if we're looking up really unhealthy things, we're going to get that, and then more of that, and then that's the ocean that we're swimming in, and it's informing our whole world. That's the ads that we're seeing. So and everything. So and then is it positive stuff? Is it true stuff? And they're so vulnerable and they're still learning about the world. And then it'll bring in different people potentially to their life. So there's a lot going on there. And we cannot base our understanding of the internet on how they use the internet. Um, they might be a little less cautious when using technology. This is for sure. And speaking from my career, so through Brave and previously as well, but Brave works with often really vulnerable youth. Um, they the stories that I hear from them when I go in and do these presentations with them, the wants that they want is they want stories of youth who've experienced the things. So if you're a caregiver and you're like, well, I'm not sure how to talk to my youth about online safety. I mean, they have no interest. Try, and I mean, do this beforehand, so you can find good content. Try looking up a story of a 15-year-old high school student sent a nude and his was kicked out of school. Like whatever it is, find some real life content about that because that's what they have routinely year after year asked me for. And I do embed in my presentations with them, but that's something that they specifically want. Another really good one is news stories. So you can Google, and I've done this right in presentations with them, human trafficking or whatever the hot topic is of the time, go to CBC website, a news website, and pull it up. It's like they need that content that's not like mom saying it or whatever that might be. But literally, those are regular things I hear from the youth that might go kind of challenge their idea that the internet's not as dangerous as all the adults say it is. So you can bring something in that might ground them in some realistic outcomes and scenarios. So youth are also vulnerable and might not want to chat about the online stuff because they're embarrassed and they're afraid to tell someone. So I'm going to tell you a story. I say this story in pretty much all of my presentations with adults or youth. And if we were in person, I would do a poll with you guys, but I'll tell you how it goes. When I go in and I do this presentation with young people, not this presentation, but the youth version of this, I'll say, so imagine I'm up on a stage and there's like 250 youth in the auditorium. So it's like a multi-grade presentation on online safety. And so I do that exact same presentation from about grade 3, 4. 4 is a sweet spot, but depending on when your birth year is, it's like grade 3, 4, all the way to post-secondary. Same presentation. The only thing that's really different in that presentation is the younger ones. I will spend more time like getting to know them, and I might use softer language initially because it is really important to name things, but there's a little bit more warming up in the beginning. Exact same presentation. We actually have the exact same conversations too, which is alarming. So like somebody in grade 4 is saying the same things as somebody in their early 20s. Anyways, so awesome. How many people in this auditorium have ever gone online, any inbox, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, email, whatever it is, text message, and had a dick pic, an unsolicited nude? Almost all the hands go up. Every time. Every single time. Doesn't matter if they're in grade 4 or they're in post-secondary. Almost all the hands go up. Okay, thank you. Hands down. Next question. For all the people who just put their hand up, how many people told a safe adult? Almost all the hands go down. Every time. Doesn't matter. Same response. Doesn't matter the ages or the size of the audience, except sometimes with those younger grades, when I ask who told a safe adult, there's a couple kids who are like, I did. I told my mom. I'll tell her again. She told me to, and I did. Yes, we love that. That's great. So there's always a few in those younger ones. Okay, hands down. So then I'll say, well, why? So for all the people who didn't put their hand up, why didn't you tell a safe adult? And I get the same, I mean, I might get some varied responses, but there's no presentation where I don't get these 3 responses. First one, that's so cringe to use their language. So cringe. They're embarrassed. They don't want to talk to their mom about dick pics. No. And so I think about the first time that I had one, and these were the dial-up days because I was on ICQ unsupervised. And that was the first time I had an unsolicited nude, and I'd never seen a naked boy before. And that was my first time seeing one. And it was a boy. I mean, I can't remember. He certainly wasn't an adult. And I really doubt it was the boy sending it looking back. I'm sure it was an adult sending that picture. So there, first of all, I got some education outside of my mom's guidance or anything like that. Um, did I go tell her? No. She would have took the internet away for sure. I would have been in so much trouble. She told me not to do things like that. So I didn't tell her. That would have been embarrassing. First thing out of the kids' mouths. Second reason they don't tell anyone is because they don't want the stuff taken away. They don't want the Wi-Fi turned off, and they don't want to lose their tablets and their phones. And they rarely say other things. Sometimes they'll say, I don't want to get in trouble. But when you break that down, they don't want the tech taken away. So when we talk about the difference between our reference point with the internet when we were youthful and their reference point, it's so different because it's their whole world. At no point in my youthfulness was the digital world my whole world. It was a piece of it. I mean, it's far more embedded now as an adult. Cool. I have the brain capacity to interact with it in appropriate ways. That's probably not even true. We're probably all addicted to our phones, right? But different reference point from my childhood to their childhood. Um, so when we do say take away the cell phones or turn off the internet as a punishment, we risk them. So why are we doing that? We're doing it to keep them safe, right? So let's say I told my mom about the picture I had received. She for sure would have took away the internet, no doubt about it. Nobody was like used to having it. It would have been so easy for her to get rid of. Um, I lost my train of thought there. But so we take it away. So now we've done that because we don't want our kids to get stolen, taken away, manipulated, extorted, all these terrible things we don't want for them. Um, Coached into sending a nude against their will. This is what we don't want. These are like our fears that we're sitting with as parents, right, in this world. Um, I'm really losing my train of thought on that one. Give me a second here. They're going to do the things anyways. So I always tell a story at this point. A couple years ago, there was a big high-profile case locally. So I'm in Moncton for folks who might be in other places on the different platforms. There was a case, there was two big cases right around the same time. One of them was a big YouTuber, like a famous YouTuber that all the kids were watching. And he turned out to be a big perv. And he was at local pools filming kids and doing other things that we shall not name. Use your wild imaginations. And then there was another big one at the time too. So then we're on, like I was on Facebook and I was reading don't read the comments, right? I was reading all the comments and one of the moms was like, yeah, I talked to my kid about that because he swims, he goes to the pools and he's on YouTube. And I said, well, you're not, or maybe he's an Instagrammer. I can't remember exactly. And she asked him, well, you're not friends with him, right? Like you never talked to him at a pool. And he was like 14, 15, 16. And he was like, yeah, mom, it's no big deal. No, 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 he's not a bad guy. Because one of his friends, like the boy's friends and the perv, they had mutual friends. So he was safe. So here's a youth who's been raised with a good sense, online safety, because kids are taught about online safety. And here's this guy who is being a child sexual abuser, like known in the media. And this kid was disregarding all of that because there was mutual online friends. So I mean, the safety thing is real. Like their reference point with assessing what's safe is pretty skewed, and I think that's a brain development piece. Um, so interesting there that this boy who presumably had a good sense of online safety, that was enough to be like, it's no big deal. The other thing on that thread, these two comments that always stuck with me was there's another mom where the kid had done something online inappropriate, let's say sent a nude for the sake of the conversation. And then so the mom took away the cell phone. Kid goes to school the next day, comes home with 8 cell phones. So presumably the kid that evening couldn't communicate with their friends. I'm willing to bet they probably could somehow anyways, but let's say they could not. So they're not telling their friends my cell phone's been taken away because their cell phone's been taken away. They go to school the next day, they come home with 8 cell phones. How does that happen? Think about it. How many people here have a junk drawer with an old cell phone sitting in it because you got your free upgrades, so you have the old cell phone kicking around? Yeah, we probably all do, right? If I ask a room of 150 people who has that in a junk drawer, probably all the hands are going to go up. And the kids know how to manipulate it. It doesn't need data. It doesn't need any of that. They can hotspot off their friends' phones, which is what they do, or they can go find some Wi-Fi. But even before finding Wi-Fi, they hotspot off their friends' phones. So let's use this example. I am protecting my child by taking away their cell phone because bad things were happening on there. And so now my kids obviously probably pretty upset about this. We're probably a little tense, you know. We're probably arguing about this. They're mad. They're going to school the next day. They've told their friends. Their friends probably all went home and got them their these extra cell phones. So we took it away to keep them safe, and we thought by them not having this tech, they're safe. They went and got the tech. And I think they'll always go get the tech. Unless they're pretty little, they have this capacity. And if we think that they do not, I mean, they're just a million steps ahead of us because certainly they do. So we think that what we've done to protect them isn't protecting them at all. Now they're mad at us. They're probably going to hide some behaviors from us because they don't want this thing to happen again. And so now our connection, that critical protective factor is wavering. So this is the key point when I suggest to folks to consider taking away tech as that protective piece might not be doing it, and it has the potential to cause harm. I'm a mom. I imagine I'll be taking away some cell phones, doing all the things. So it's just something to consider. Okay, so why didn't they tell the parents about the dick pics? That's so cringe. That's embarrassing. I don't want my stuff taken away. Third reason, and the one I find the most alarming, no big deal. So we have kids from grade 3 to post-secondary getting unsolicited nudes. So we're talking about like children to young adult to adults. And they all think it's no big deal. And so the truth is, and they say it's no big deal and I handle it. And the truth is that they do handle it. They stop talking to the people for the most part. They block them. They report them sometimes, but they're pretty good at just like blocking it, not talking to them anymore and moving on. To me, when I hear that again and again and again and again, is we have entire generations of kids and youth that are groomed to be sexually exploited. They're already groomed. So when we talk about people coming in to groom, we have generations groomed already because that is no big deal. I mean, it is such a big deal that we have young people so normalized to being subjected to these things that they think it's no big deal and they handle it on their own. That is such a big deal. And it's an even bigger deal that they don't think it's a big deal. At some point when their brains are developed, they will realize what a big deal this is, but it's such a big deal. So talking about dick pics is really, really important. And I literally name that so many times in my presentations because I know there's a few people here going, oh, what does she keep saying dick pics? That's really uncomfortable. So this is a piece that we can coach with our youngsters and with ourselves because there's a lot of work to do ourselves as well because we can't compare our digital lives to theirs and our childhoods to theirs. If you had a physical sensation when I said dick pics, the first time, the second time, the third time, that feeling is something to name and recognize. And it's something that we want to name and recognize with young people as well, so that they can start to recognize uncomfortable feelings. Because right now, they are experiencing uncomfortable things and it's normalized, which makes it easier for someone to manipulate them because it's just a normal thing. Um, so another interesting thing about the story with all the kids putting their hands up, and I do it with groups of adults too, and it's pretty much the same response. The kids are telling people, so overwhelmingly, they're not telling safe adults. So I say, do you tell anyone? And they're all telling people. They're all telling their friends. So this is a great entryway to talk to young people about how to stay safe and poise it it's about them, but it's not about them. I want to talk to you about how you might be able to help a friend one day. So I do a lot of that. It's building peer capacity, and I'll say it to the grade 3s, and I'll say it to the college students. You might never need this information, especially with the little ones. It's like a good way to talk like this is like big kid stuff. You might never, ever need it. And I hope that you never need it. But I promise you, at some point in your whole life, you're going to have a friend going through this and you're going to have really good information to give them. And it might even save their life. And that is cybertip.ca. So if you've never heard of cybertip.ca, it's a Canadian service to minors where they can report I always say, the icky stuff that happens online, and it goes to the RCMP, but it's not the same as walking into the RCMP detachment to like make a statement or something because it goes to the ICE division. So it goes to the folks who specialize in the sexualized internet crimes against children, which is great. Because I always say, like, with that reference point of having dial-up internet and not having what the kids have now in terms of the digital world, that we're all doing our best, right, to support the kids that we care about so much. And we all picked up pieces of information as the internet came out and came into homes and grew and morphed and became what it is today. We all learned things and we carry them with us. And we all have different kind of pieces about what's legal, what's not legal, what are our protections, what's Canadian, what's not Canadian. If a kid sends a nude, are they distributing child pornography? Like, where did we learn all the policies and rules and laws about these things? Probably just from random places, and we've held on to them like they're truths. And the fact of the matter is a lot of us hold untruths, things that aren't true, or half truths, or myths, and then we give them to the youth. So it's not awesome because we well-meaningly scare youth. We use fear tactics, and that doesn't protect them, and it also doesn't open the door to conversation. Um, and those are two things that we want. So we'll talk about the distribution of nudes and minors in a little bit, but cyber tips. So why aren't they reporting? That's so cringe, and I don't want my stuff taken away. So if they report to cyber tips, goes to the RCMP, and they can report anonymously. Big deal to the youth. Like they're like, when we have these conversations, they really want to know. And so I've also had youth or parents come into my office before, dragging youth who had all the terrible, awful things happen online, and they went to the RCMP, like in person, and had negative experience. And I think often they get an adult behind a desk somewhere who's, whether it's an officer or a clerk, who's also doing their best, but also have some myths embedded in their toolbox and give incorrect information out. And I mean, there's trauma and harm on being on the receiving end of that, which is why, I mean, you can report online stuff anywhere, but this is the beauty about cyber tips. It goes to the RCMP that specialize in it because our CMP officers are actually just like all the rest of us. We're trying to do our best, and they're not out there specializing in the online crimes. It's a specialty, just like with doctors. They specialize. This stuff is a specialty as well. Um, so they can report anonymously. That's a big deal. And it doesn't have to be anonymous. So they can provide all their contact information or not. And I always recommend when I'm talking to young people, like, please bring in a safe adult. Like, please tell a safe adult. You can do cyber tips with a safe adult. But if you're not going to bring in a safe adult at all, like, please utilize cyber tip. So it's anonymous, and they have the power to potentially remove things from the internet. So in the way that we all try our best to keep young people safe online, and we tell them all the time, I mean, this is another thing where I do like a show of hands. If I asked everybody here how many people have told a young person that don't put bad things on the internet because it'll be there forever and you can't get it off, right? Like, yeah. So it's not true. So if we are telling them, don't put things on the internet, they'll be stuck there forever. I will take away your phone. You'll ruin your life. Like all the things that we tell them because we love them, right? That's literally why I just want the best for you. Like, don't do these terrible things. What incentive do they have to A, tell you when the terrible, awful things happened? Because I mean, you always said that don't do this, and now I've done it. You always told me I'd be punished, so like, why am I going to come tell you? And there's nothing good that's going to come from me telling you because it's just there forever. So what's the point? So we do it because we love them and we want to protect them, but it's a bit of a disservice, and it's also not true. So they can potentially have things removed through cyber tip, and that's really important for the youth to know. But we don't want them putting things on the internet that aren't great either. So the strength-based version of that exact same message is, or how I deliver it is, if you wouldn't send it to grandma, maybe don't put it on the internet. So same message, they get it. And you could even joke with it like that because, like, well, you're smiling. Like, what are you doing on the internet that you wouldn't send to grandma? And that's really the spirit to approach these conversations through humor, through honesty, through authenticity, through breaking down myths and not using them, because it builds connectivity. And all these things that we've traditionally done kind of cause harm or have the potential to cause harm. So CyberTip is amazing. It is only for minors. There's tons of amazing resources on that website. It'll be in the follow-up email. A sister site to that website is needhelpnow.ca. And if CyberTip is for grown-ups in terms of like the resources on there, it's not. It's for everyone, but the reporting tool is there. Need Help Now is for the youth. So I always say, like, to the youth, if you're not sure if you're sending online or child pornography, that's the site that answers that question. Not sure what the age of consent is, that's the page that answers that question. So it answers it with that youth lens, that youth language. So two great resources, cybertip.ca, check it out. It's not just a reporting platform, so much on there, and needhelpnow.ca, and that's for the kiddos.
Now, Ashley,
Um,
sorry,
no, yeah,
those two sites, that will be in the information that we'll be sending out through an email later to the
yeah,
people.
exactly.
Excellent.
Yeah, they're great. And if there's any service providers here or like myself, I'm a parent, I'm a social worker, I'm a service provider, I'm all the things. You can order free resources from that website as well. So often when I go into the schools, I'll bring a little packet. There's posters to put up in the hallways. There's all kinds of things on there for free. So that's really great. Um, but don't forget, they're all telling their friends about the dick pics. So this is another thing. Well, my kid wouldn't talk to me about dick pics, Ashley. Like, oh, they're not gonna do that. So I go into the schools and I talk about dick pics, and I often have to come back for like I have to cut the presentation and come back to continue because there's not enough time to talk to the youth about dick pics, which means they really want to talk about it. They are, when they see me go in with this comfort and this smile and be like, I talk about this all day long, you guys, this is my job. They have so much to say about it. And I say to them the same things that I said to you. Listen, we're all just trying our best. We all picked up things along the way and we're imparting them to the youth, and a lot of them aren't right. So go check out cybertips.ca, go check out Need Help Now and get the good information. And it's, adults are trying their best as well. And they might give wrong information. But please give good information to your peers because you might save their lives. And so for those who have high school students in the Anglophone East District, in November of every year, they do the Youth Mental Health Summit. So there's about 100 and between 100 and 200 high school students that go to this conference for the day, essentially. And there's a variety of workshops. So last few years, I've presented the online safety one for youth there. And last year, they had an evaluation, and one of the youth put a comment, and it was for my workshop. It was, well, this was awesome. I'm going home to report a whole bunch of whole bunch of online pervs. And I was like, wow. I mean, that's incredible. And how I coach the youth with it is you don't need to be sextorted, and we'll talk about what that is in a minute, to report to cyber tips. Report the icky stuff. If you're worried that like, oh, this isn't enough to report here, the only thing that's going to happen is the officer who's reading that it might not lead to an investigation. Cool. So they're doing nothing. No big deal. And actually, it might add enough crumbs to it being something down the road, but like, feel free to waste their time is the message there. You're not bothering them. This is their job. They would want you to report. So I say things like, this is something I used to get a lot as a youth on the internet. I don't know if it's still a thing, but like, hey, baby, what are you wearing? Like, I'm wearing clothes. Thanks. I'm a human. I'm wearing clothes. But that's an example I give to the youth. Nobody cares what you're wearing. If someone asks you that online, they're not asking what you're wearing. They're luring and grooming, like they're trying to get to an end game, and that is the start. So simply having, Joe user 6111 on Instagram on this date was asking me what I'm wearing, and I'm actually 14 years old. That's enough to report on there. So report the icky online stuff, report the unsolicited nudes / dick pics that you're getting. Like, that's the stuff to report there. Over reports. And so when we're talking about the internet with youth, so the positive and the negatives here, it's really important when I go in and talk to youth about it, I'll say, I'm not anti-internet. I actually work with youth and I try never to say don't. So I'll never say, don't do this, don't do that. Let's talk about different outcomes if you choose that, which is really the best way because then we're going to be teaching critical thinking skills. Like, yeah, you could totally send that nude. You could totally go hang out with that person over there. Let's talk about different outcomes. And this also takes away from the language of consequences, which is really deficit based and doesn't build that connectivity. So the internet is awesome. Imagine the whole COVID experience without the internet. I mean, actually imagine that. Like us. Imagine that, right? That would have been terrible. Terrible. The isolation. Kids went to school. We went to work. People connected. All the things. Musicians had online concerts. So many beautiful things about the internet. And I think it's this like generational shift. It's us that we have to get out of the doom and gloom of the internet. And when we bring that to the youth, all we do is make this like gaping hole because the internet is their whole world. It's not a piece of their world. So we really need to, but not all wonderful, because obviously terrible things can happen on the internet. This is the internet, and let's talk about the incomes of or the outcomes of utilizing it in different ways. Okay. So, trending apps. Um, so we have Snapchat at the top. Like I said, I won't go through them all because they change. I'm sure the popular ones a lot of you know about. I'll give a really quick breakdown. Snapchat is it's a messaging app and the messages can disappear. So you can set a timer, they disappear in 3 seconds. Actually, I haven't been on Snapchat in a really, really long time, but you can set it for 3 seconds. Maybe it's 30 seconds, a minute, or never. But typically they disappear pretty quickly, which helps young people feel safe. So one of the slides earlier talked about young people feeling alluding to that they feel over safe on the internet, which from where I'm standing and what I've seen in my work, I would agree with that. Snapchat really fuels that feeling. It disappears. So I can send a nude, it's gonna disappear. It's fine. There's no paper trail. Oh, there's no like, it's just gone into the world. Not true. That's not the case. It does exist. People can also take screenshots the second it shows up. Snapchat, I do believe, tells you when somebody's done that, but again, they've done it. You just know that they've done it. They can have another recording device pointing at their phone so they can be recording it that way. It's just it makes you feel safe, but it's not safe. What I would like to highlight though about Snapchat is, and it's also really fun, it has filters. So I refused to get Snapchat for years. I mean, it's been around for a long time. But maybe like literally like 15 years ago, I had a roommate and they were like, Ashley, come here. And they put Snapchat in front of my face with a ridiculous filter on. And I mean, I laughed so hard. I was crying. I was laughing so hard. So it's fun. So Snapchat is fun. If you've never snapped before and your kid has Snapchat, go sit in a filter with them for a few minutes. Be where the youth are. This is one of the best things you can do to build that connectivity, enjoy what they enjoy, understand their digital world. It's not like you're asking them to go send nudes on Snapchat. You are just taking time to enjoy space with them and in the space that is authentic to them, which is digital. And Snapchat they love. So anyways, Snapchat's cool. Well, let me tell you about something that's not so great about Snapchat. So if you don't know about the Snap Map or Ghost Mode, that's just what I'm going to highlight before we move on to some of the other ones quickly. So on Snapchat, you can enable the Snap Map. The Snap Map, if you have it enabled, and I'm pretty sure the default setting is enabled, it will show you. So if I was on Snapchat, and all my peeps were on Snapchat, all my friends and my colleagues and everyone, I could go on my Snap Map and I would see where they are, all my Snapchat friends. So, Sally's over here, 2 streets over. It shows them all. They have to be on Snapchat. There was an update that came out about 4 or 5 years ago where I just have to click on Sally and, oh, and it's live too. The map, Like I can watch Sally go from Main Street to Von Harvey, blah, blah, blah. And I can click on Sally and get directions to where she is with Google Maps or whatever it is. So, one, if you're tracking your kids, which I know is a thing, and my brain's not even there yet because I'm not tracking my kid. She's 5. She's always with me. She's always with me. But parents want to do this. So, for a parent's perspective, with that specific lens, maybe you like the Snapchat map, the Snap map. If you're a trafficker, you also really like the Snap map because you lure, you groom, you connect, you get on all their spaces, their digital spaces, and now you can find them when you want to find them, which is problematic. Pros and cons. And when you talk to the youth about the Snap map, you have to pro-con it. You can't just say, traffickers are going to get you because mom. So that's the Snap map. Ghost mode. So ghost mode, and there will be a resource in the resource list that tells you how to go into ghost mode specifically on Snap map. So if you put your Snapchat into ghost mode, it turns off your Snap map. Unless you want to track your kid. Find your truth. But those are 2 things that I want to highlight with Snapchat. Snap map, ghost mode. And if you don't have a kid who's gone through a time with Snapchat, you might not know about streaks. Maybe you know about streaks, but streaks are if I'm, a youth and my best friend is Mary, we snap every day. So we'll send a message to each other. And if we do that every day, it grows our streak. So if we've done that for 300 days, we have a great streak. We miss one day and we lose our streak. So you know that like the dopamine fixes that we get from social media and likes and all these things, we get it from these streaks on Snapchat. And all our kiddos that have these complex traumas, we love these little brain things, right? So something to be aware of. Getting streaks is not inherently bad. So if you're like, oh, I heard about the streaks tonight, you're not doing streaks. Like there's nothing wrong with it. We just need to know that there's this buy-in. They don't want to give it up. I remember working with youth and they would go away for a time. I don't know where they were going. Let's say they were going on a cruise for March break or something. And where I used to live, March break was 2 weeks. They would give their friend their sign-in information to sign into their Snapchat every day so that they wouldn't lose their snaps because they weren't going to be able to snap where they were. Which brings in another safety piece. Who are we giving access to our accounts? But it's my best friend. Right. But I always coach with youth. We don't give our passwords to anyone. Definitely not our boyfriend or girlfriends. Like no one outside of your parents. Yes, password sharing. Something I always talk about with youth because we actually can't prevent them from sharing passwords. We can just say, don't think it's a good idea, only share with your parents. I do like to gift them instead of the don'ts and the ooh, is standing where I'm standing, something I've realized in life. People come through your life for chapters. There's so few people who are there from chapter 1 to chapter 100. If chapters 100 is the end, even people who you meet and they're your best friend and you know you're going to be little old ladies together. And then a few years later, you don't talk anymore. And then it might happen again a few years later, you get that new bestie. And that is proven true for my, 40 years of life that those things happen. You can never predict how long, how many chapters somebody's there for. So if we are giving people so much access to our worlds, right? Because we're youth and our lives are digital, we're giving someone access to our insides, basically. We're giving them a lot of access and a lot of trust. And they don't have the longevity of life to know that that person might not be their friend in 3 weeks. So that's how I judge, or that's how I chat about that topic with youth and sharing passwords. Don't recommend it. Only parents, because we never know, even though I know it's your best friend and all the things. Okay, so a few things about Snapchat, Instagram. Something I like to mention about Instagram, I'm newer to the Instagram world. I've had it for a few years now, but was really late to the game. I'm a Facebooker, like I don't need all the things, but I actually want you to take note. Yeah, you too, right? We don't all need all the things, but
Yeah.
changing and like, But I actually want to address this, and I wasn't doing this intentionally, but it is always something I address. When we have that attitude of like, I can't keep up with all the things, um, what I was in a trafficking training a few years ago, and it was for parents, and it was the facilitator was a parent whose daughter was trafficked and now she does the work. She said a quote that I've never forgotten, which speaks to this, like, I can't keep up with the youth. I don't need TikTok or Snapchat or whatever, Instagram. As someone who was very late to Instagram, she said, we're so busy. I mean, kudos to all of you guys for being together at 8 p.m. on a weeknight. We're so busy. Like, we go to work, we come home, it's the evening routine, it's suppers and baths and homework and evening jobs, volunteering, sports, whatever it might be, pets. Um, it's so busy. How do you put specific side time aside to spend quality time with your young people, especially young people who might not really be into that? Like, how do you do that? So she was saying this, and I'm like, I mean, my kid was like probably a toddler at that time, and I was like, yeah, like this is so hard. It's true. Like, I mean, she's like attached to me at this age bracket, but that's not always going to be there. But I could appreciate what she was saying. And then she talked for a little bit more, and she was like, the truth is that someone always has time to spend with your kid, and it's a trafficker. They have all the time in the world. And I was like, you're right. You're right. They're they're going to pause everything and lean right in a way that feels so authentic to your young person. So when we lead with like, I can't keep up with all the stuff, and I get it. I fully get it. Um, Somebody else will. So be in these places that youth are. If the only thing you do on TikTok is follow your kid on TikTok, do that. Because then A, you're starting to understand what TikTok's all about. You can talk to your kid about TikTok. B, you are showing an interest in something that your kid has an interest in, which also might be video games, which I also know might be painful. You don't want to game with your kid, or you don't want to sit and watch them game. Oh my God. Um, be where they are for the connection piece. 'Cause somebody else has time to do that. Isn't it better if it's you? We need to be where the youth are. Say you join TikTok and you're just like, I joined TikTok with a work account because we have to be where the youth are. And I have this golden nugget of leading the youth team, and that the youth team often has youthful staff, in their 20s or whatever. And so they get to keep me a bit more relevant with the trends. And so I got a TikTok account because we started making TikTok content. And I realized I didn't know anything about TikTok. If I ever see a TikTok video, it's because it's shared on Facebook. That's the only way I see them. But to actually make TikTok content, I'm going to tell you, because I'm sure there's a couple of people here who don't know about the TikTok world unless it's just coming on another platform. And maybe I'm wrong now, and this isn't how it's done anymore, but they were making these videos. So there's like trending beats, trending songs, trending beats that you can pick from TikTok. And you have to pick a trending beat and then make a video that goes to the beat. That's the whole like TikTok thing. All those trending dances you see with everything, like that's what's going on. And I was like, oh, I had no, what? Like, okay, had no idea. Like, no idea. But let's say I'm a parent, my kid has TikTok, I get TikTok, I follow my kid and like some business I like or whatever. Now I have the ability on the car ride, which I'm sure we all know are like the best times to talk to teenagers, those car rides. You can be like, man, you should hear about this crazy TikTok video I saw yesterday. Get this. And then you're on the same platform as they are. Every pun intended, you're on their level. Connection, one of the best protective factors to all the awful things that we don't want to happen to our young people. So when we're talking about Instagram now, one of the things I started noticing late in the game when I got onto Instagram was, and this is something that my more youthful staff had told me about, educated me about back then, was please hold. Getting offers in your inbox on Instagram. So, and I started getting them right away. And I've never gotten one on Facebook. So, and maybe they're on other platforms too, but from my personal experience, it's exclusive to Instagram, but it's like some random link in your inbox, and let's say some Sally's sweatshirts wants to give me 10% off if I buy one of their sweatshirts and wear it on my profile. So like I'm advertising for them. And now, so a few things. This is a good thing to talk to youth about because they all know about this trend. If nobody here knew that this is a thing out there, it's totally a thing and they know about it. A, it might be a legitimate thing and they might love that brand. The brand might have actually reached out to them because through the data that they collect for free from all of us, they know that you like Sally sweatshirts. Um, and they might be able to make money. And that's just a cool way to make money because they live online. They just have to wear this brand that they like already and they're going to make a little money. Cool. Now, if I'm a trafficker or bad news Bob, I just need to snoop your profile a little bit, see what you like, send you a link. The link might be a scam, it might be malware. I mean, it could be anything. Or I'm just building a relationship with you, getting you to trust me, maybe doing a photo shoot with you. I mean, imagine how that could go sideways. So that's one thing to watch for, but more to watch for than to just have a conversation with your kid. And not this conversation, don't you ever da 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 da, because I'm like, I've never seen one of those. They're just not going to open up to you. So like, oh, I heard that this is a thing out there and that sometimes it's legitimate and that's cool. And if you ever get that and you want to explore it, like let's explore it together. Because even though sometimes it can be cool, sometimes it can be something not cool either. And I just want to talk about that. And then you have an entryway to talk about what young people can do if they ever feel uncomfortable online. Bring in a safe adult, cybertip.ca. Short and sweet. Um, TikTok, Discord and Omegle, or Megal, Omegle. There's certain sites and apps I just say if you hear about your kids on them, just really have your spidey sense up. And if they are using, I mean, any of them, but these ones just make me more uneasy, like really be sure that they know about CyberTip. Um, because here's a thing to watch for. Um, if you have an online platform, so let's say Instagram, and you have Instagram friends, right? So my Instagram account and world and my Facebook account world are quite different because I'm not so into Instagram and I've always been on Facebook since Facebook's been a thing for the most part. So let's say your kid, let's call him Bob, Joe. Joe, if Joe is on Instagram and has an online friend, and guess what? They all have online friends. I know he told them not to, but they all do. If he's on there talking to Matt, his online friend, and then suddenly Matt's like, oh, let's go meet up on Discord. This is a red flag because, I mean, all these platforms, you can do all the things, right? You can message, you could chat, you could video, like play virtual games. Like they can all do the things in some capacity. Why do you need to go from Instagram to Discord? Actually question that in a curious, non-authoritative way. Why? If you can chat with them there, why are you going over here to chat with them? So if I'm bad news, Ashley, if I'm a creeper, if someone adds me on Instagram, they're going to get this information about me. They add me on Facebook, they're going to get this information about me. Add me on more platforms, they collect more information and data about me. And honestly, if you add me on Instagram, you're not getting much on me. You add me on Facebook, you have my family, you have my extensive friend network, you have my extensive professional network, you have pictures going back, blah, 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 blah. Like if there's the spot, there's the gold mine of information, right? So, and that's why the bad news Bobs out there will get youth or adults even to join multiple platforms. You're building trust and they're collecting more information. So just something, a red flag for joining new platforms with online friends. Gently question it and pro con it. Yeah, it could be because you have this cool function over there on Discord. Of course, that is really cool. Let's talk about some other outcomes that could come from that as well.
Ashley,
Yep.
I Could you tell me when it comes to Discord, it has that little icon, of course, of like a PS5 controller, an Xbox controller. Now, is that something that they can access through their PS5?
So this is something that I'm going to make a note. I can't answer it right now,
Okay.
but I'll make sure there's a
I,
resource in the resource list. Uh,
no
just
worries. I know we only have 20 minutes left, so it's totally great. Yep.
I do want to talk about gaming though, and this could potentially actually be another webinar that we do as well. Gaming is something that is particular and doesn't get enough attention. And actually, just this year, I've actually noticed a lot more resources coming out about it. But here's a couple things that you can actually do with the youth as well. Uh, One of the key pieces to coach in youth to help them understand that or to reduce that safeness that they feel on the internet. That's not even true. I don't want to reduce how they feel safe and give them a more realistic portrayal of the internet. Um, is if they're not sure what to do or if they should do the thing or talk to the person or whatever, would it feel different if it was online, offline? And I'll give you some examples. I used to work in Yellowknife. I spent 10 years in the Northwest Territories working at the YW there. And I had a colleague who ran another similar youth group in Iqaluit. So she got a good pot of money and she was able to bring Snapchat executives up from California up to the Arctic to tell them about Snapchat and what the insider scoop on Snapchat. So she shared all this great stories and I shared them in my group and I've shared them ever since. So this guy comes up and he says, first of all your snaps you ever snapped, they exist in a server in California. Like they're all there. Oh, they disappeared, but they're all still there. And then he goes, I'm going to put a social media umbrella over this room. And so now any content on your phones, doesn't matter if it's private or not, I can throw it up here on the screen up here. And he's actually doing this in front of the youth. And so this one youth like loses all the color in his face. He starts sweating. He's obviously upset. Staff take him out and kind of like talk him down. And the guy didn't actually do the thing he said he was going to do, but he said he had the power to do it. So that's a good example to give to youth that it actually doesn't matter how locked down you think your stuff is. Somebody out there can access it, and that's important to know. Are they accessing it? Probably for like data mining more than anything, but it's good that they know that that's a potential. Another story that came from that conversation that I always gift. Imagine you're downtown Moncton. It's like 10 o'clock at night. It's dark, you're a little nervous. You're just waiting for the bus. You want to go home, basketball practice finished or whatever. Man walks up to you, leans right into your personal bubble in that little bus shelter and says, can I follow you? No, right? Like, please run the other way. Online, please do. I'm almost at 1,000 followers. A good example, the youth love these stories. Good example of how we can change how we decision make online versus offline. And if it's a good thing to do all the time, yes, I'm going to add this person. Yes, I'm going to sign up for this thing. Okay, if that was online or offline, like the opposite, would that change how it feels? That physical sensation in your body, like when I started talking about dick pics, let's name that as discomfort and honor it. We don't need to be polite and disregard it and normalize it. Let's honor it. I'm really uncomfortable right now. I need to go. So the online, offline thing. And the other example I give with that same kind of story is if, say you go to Centennial Park and a man walks up to you, says, do you want to play? No, run the other way, call the police. Online gaming. So here's the thing that happens. I grew up, original Nintendo came out when I was little. My brother's 2 years older, so we had the original Nintendo. So if my mom walked into the living room when my brother and I were playing Nintendo, we had our little, I always say joysticks, just to age me like so much. We had our controllers. It was plugged into the Nintendo, like Tetris, Duck Hunt, Mario, original, and that was it. Maybe she was worried about screen time, but I even doubt it because it was the 80s. Um, Parents, so then the thing is that those little boys and girls grew up gaming and never really stopped gaming, which is like a generational shift, unlike before. So little boys and girls who are playing Nintendo have grown up and gaming has changed. So now when parents walk into a room and little Ashley and Joey are sitting there with their, we shall not call them joysticks, they're actually gaming live with people all over the world. And because those little boys and girls never stopped gaming, they're gaming with adults. So they're in virtual spaces, gaming cross generations, strangers, and that is normalized as well. Like you're shaking your head, right? I know I have goosebumps just
Yeah.
saying, like, oh, that's not normal and that's not okay. And I never thought about it that way. That's weird. Like, ooh, I don't like it. I am uncomfortable. I don't like it. They don't feel that sensation because it's so normal. So when we're talking about, do you want to play? Those are the examples to use, not like, don't game with adult men. Because hey, adult men are just out there gaming, as are adult women. That generational shift happened, and that's what gaming looks like. So we have to talk about it in a different way. Um, and that's a whole other piece. But the gaming piece, just like we picked up all these things and we're all trying our best, how many people had never thought about online gaming quite like that? So we really, really have to adjust our virtual understanding of young people in digital spaces versus our reality with digital spaces. So much more in gaming, but for the sake of time, moving right along. Was OnlyFans up here? I just want to talk about OnlyFans. If you've never heard of OnlyFans, it's not for minors. It's for adults. Um, it is, so if you hear kids talking about it, I just say have your spidey sense up. So if I was a OnlyFans has performers and you can subscribe to them. So if I was a performer on OnlyFans, I could perform and then people could subscribe to me. That would bring me income. And it's called OnlyFans because like only my fans are going to watch my content. All the content is on there. I mean, you can imagine there's stripping and all kinds of sexual things, but there's also bodybuilding and CrossFit and like every fetish under the sun. Like it is anything. It's not just like OnlyFans is only sexual stuff. You can imagine that that's the vibe though with OnlyFans. There are minors on there though, lying about their age or whoever they do it. I've heard, secondhand accounts of lots of youth on there making money. So if you hear youth on it, spidey sense, because it's not for youth. And trafficking can happen on there as well too. So oftentimes we think about trafficking, and trafficking is just one of the forms of sexual exploitation. Um, Folks often think you need to move over borders and you have to literally move, but you can be trafficked. You can be sitting on your couch and your kid is upstairs in their bedroom getting trafficked over the internet. You don't need to be moving anywhere. So OnlyFans, any of the digital spaces, but OnlyFans has that potential. So we've been talking a lot about sextortion. Um, what is it exactly? So sextortion is a form of blackmail that involves online threatening um, to someone so that they're threatened to send a picture or a nude or video. And if they have to, so then they send it. And then if the person who sent it doesn't then send the extorter money, they'll do XYZ with the photo. So the youth version of this is somebody online finds their profile or whatever and gets to know a little bit about them, like, oh, I see you're in basketball, whatever little personal information they need to get to start making a connection. Oftentimes they'll pretend that they're a popular kid at school. Oh, I think we're in math class together. And then they'll take a picture of a youth that they get from the internet that goes to their school, pretend you're this pretty girl or handsome boy, and then start to build a relationship with this person, and then ask them to send a nude at some point, and then they do it, and then very quickly there's you have to send me $500, and then there's no amount of money that's enough, so then you have to send me $1,000, or else I'm sending this to your grandma, I'm putting it on Google, I'm putting it on YouTube, I'm putting it on Facebook, I'm sending it to your entire school network, I'm doing all the things, and they often do those things. So that's sextortion. It's that online threatening piece around nudes. So the advice here, it's really simple, is never give in, never send money, never give in. It'll never stop. So to coach the young people, and they're familiar with this, even if they're not naming it sextortion, as soon as you start to see that happening, you have to stop. You have to bring in a safe adult. There are very serious consequences. Young people take their lives over sextortion. And if they have sent the picture, which is why we need to stop saying like, don't put these things out there, because they actually do put them out there. That's the world that they live in, and we can't punish them for it. We actually want to coach them not to do it. And if something like that ever happens to you or your friend, which is a safe way to talk about it, right? Because then you're not, "Nah, nah, nah." It's like if that ever happens to your friend, you need to let them know that they have to bring in a safe adult immediately. If they're not going to, report it to cyber tip, call 911, whatever. But bring in a safe adult, don't send money, shut it down, but don't delete anything. You want that evidence that can all be reported. I would report all that to cyber tip. So you can block them on the platform, but take screenshots, all that stuff. Don't send the money. And in fact, we often think about girls as the ones that's getting manipulated online to do all these things, but the rates for boys experiencing sextortion have gone up by over 800% in the last few years. They're actually a huge target for sextortion. And kids can sextort others too. It can be a kid in their school, so it can be a really sensitive topic. And of course, that's another kid that probably needs a lot of interventions as well. So complicated, but that's what sextortion is. It happens around here. Like we're not immune to this stuff. I did this presentation last May in a local high school, and there was a kid on the island that had just taken his life like that week. And it was a few hours from the point that he was contacted and between when he took his life. It was fast. This isn't like months or weeks. So we have to have the conversations about dick pics. We have to ground ourselves and get comfortable with that conversation or get comfortable that it might be a bit uncomfortable. We have to go in, not doom and gloom and finger pointing and kind of just open the floor and know that this connection is everything. Because if we've told them you're in so much trouble, I'll put in all these consequences if you ever do this thing, and then they get extorted and they're not going to come to you. None of us want that, right? Like we're putting in the doom and gloom because we want to keep them safe. But please hear my voice that there's a huge potential that we're not doing that. And we're actually, really risking our connection and their ability to come to us in their darkest moment, which is really, really at the end of the day, what we want, right? That they'll come to us. Some of these I'm going to skip over because we've talked about them. Um, it's up in the media. You can Google it. It's a big thing. And I'll always say anything you hear about sextortion, human trafficking with rates is the tip of the iceberg because most people don't report. So it's way bigger than of a problem. And the answer is not scaring folks. The answer is just connecting and chatting. So the criminal code, I always say, even when I do the human trafficking presentation, we don't need to memorize the criminal code. We don't memorize the definition of trafficking or sextortion. It's good to know that they're out there and name them and know that there is criminal code that addresses these things. And really, I recommend reporting through CyberTip. So it goes to the folks who know all the things about specifically this. But we are protected in the law for luring and sextortion, and the cases are in the media. I used to spend a lot more time when I created this actually convincing people that this was a thing, but it's actually in the media a lot more in the last year that I spend way less time doing it. So again, talk to them, and they're telling their peers. So we need to really tell them like it might not be you, it might be your friend, because like remember the hands, the story at the start, they're all telling their peers.
Can I
I really
pause there for one
recommend.
sec, Ashley? Oh, sorry. So, I just wanted to encourage people like in 10 minutes, remember we're going off live. So that way you can ask all these questions that you're probably holding on to. So I want to make sure that you can write them down or whatever, but we'll be happy to answer them soon. Okay, go ahead, Ashley.
Yeah, and don't be shy to jump in, folks. Love the questions. One thing that I recommend to folks that I feel like you're not often going to read in like a manual, parenting manual or something, is to give your young people white lies to get out of social situations. And I know we preach truthfulness, but remember that brain development piece that what their peers think is actually going to override all this great wisdom and advice that we impart on them for their whole lives. So let's say they're at a sleepover, they're at a friend's house or at a party, whatever it is. Give them the white lies in advance and practice with them. Don't just tell them you can lie to get out of that if the kids are getting into a car drunk. Like that's not good enough. So you can say, let's say they're at a party and their friends are going to a different location and that's something that you've talked about or they feel unsafe about, you can say, oh, my parents actually have a tracker on my phone. And if I'm not heading home by 10:30. They'll actually be here. And my uncle's with the RCMP. Whatever the lie is that gets them out of the place that they don't feel safe is okay. And we can talk to them about white lies. And that at the end of the day, the overriding value is always safety. So if you have to lie for your safety, then lie for your teeth, child. The foundation that we want everyone standing on is safety. So practice that, do it with them. So that's a good one. White lies to get out of and practice with them to get out of conversations, situations, locations, that sort of thing. Tell them that you're their safe place. Your door is always open. So that example I gave earlier of that parent whose kid was trafficked and said that the traffickers will always have time for your kids. Said that oh, that one just flew away. It'll come back. It'll come back. Oh, yes, it came back. There was a dad in that training that she shared a video, and he, when he was growing up, had always told his parents, and he had sisters, had always told his sisters that if you get pregnant, you're out of my house. So to him, when he was a dad, it worked for his sisters. They never got pregnant, they never got kicked out. So he did that with his daughters. They got pregnant. He kicked them out. They were trafficked. So your home is always the right place for your kid. It doesn't matter if they've broken every rule, flipped you off, and robbed a bank. Your door is always open to them, and you love them no matter what. Even if they ran away, stole your car, even if you're mad at them, like your door is always open to them. When we're talking about lures in the internet, so we talked about the branding, meaning like 10% off, that sort of thing that happens on a lot of the platforms, being moved to different platforms, because why are we doing that? These bad people typically pose as like a Romeo type guy. It feels good in the beginning. We need to tell youth that we're looking for scary people online. That's not what we want to coach, because it doesn't typically happen that way, at least initially. And things that the youth want right now in the world of YouTubers and Instagram stars and trendsetters and all these things. They want to be famous Instagrammers and YouTubers. And these are things that traffickers and people who want to exploit you will use. They will, oh, you want to have a modeling gig? Come for this photo shoot. So we kind of need to name that as well. And we don't want to doom and gloom it. We want to talk about, oh, if you are interested in modeling, let's talk about how we can do that. Let's Google what that might look like. If you ever get an offer, let me know and we're going to research it together. Because if we're like, don't, we're just, we're severing the connectivity and something that they're interested in. But we do need to name it. It is a common lure, an emergency, jobs, love, famous, threats, something that is good to have for all your kids. Vulnerable, not vulnerable, grown up, not grown up, is a code word, like a safe word. I do that even with the youth that I mentor. So if I say this word, this will happen. And you guys decide what that is together. It could be that I call the police, that I turn the tracker on your phone, like whatever it is, decide together. It's a preventative thing. So that if they're ever in that situation, you have it. If you don't know the age of consent to sexual activity, all I'll say is it starts at 16, but it actually starts at 12 with close in age exceptions. So this is written into the Criminal Code of Canada, and it's highly Googleable, so I'm not going to spend too much time breaking it down. If you do Google it, make sure you Google Canadian content, because it's different everywhere. And what I actually want to reiterate with this is that minors cannot consent to sell sexual activity. This is different in different places in the world, but that means when you hear things like teen prostitution or child pornography actually drives me crazy because that term is written into the criminal code. They don't actually exist. It's like an oxymoron, because a child can never consent to be in pornography. They've been forced to be there. Therefore, it is sexual exploitation. A teenager can never consent to be a teenage prostitute because they cannot legally consent to that. It is not possible in the Criminal Code of Canada. Therefore, if a teen is selling sexual services, they are being sexually exploited, potentially trafficked. There's different definitions there, but that's really important to know. And when we're looking at digital stuff, a very trending thing we hear with young people is they sell nudes on Snapchat. So what are they saying when they're saying they're selling nudes on Snapchat? Because minors can't sell nudes. And that's not like, don't do this. This is like, oh, what's happening here? We need to understand. We need to be on Snapchat. We need to have dick pic conversations. We need to stay connected to the young people. We talked a bit about this. Unhealthy age difference is really talking about the age of consent, which we just talked about. And actually, I did a presentation a while ago now, and this foster mom actually shared this example, and I like to share it. I told her, I was like, I'm going to use that forever. That's so good. So she had a young teenager with her and was online, and she had an online friend that was turning into an online boyfriend. And the teen asked the mom if she could have the online boyfriend. And the foster mom had the best response. She was like, if I can meet him, let's meet him first. And to me, I was like, this is an amazing response because wouldn't you do the exact same thing if it was in real life? So remember I said earlier, take it online, offline. Does it feel different? Does it feel the same? Online, we're like, no, don't do it. No online boyfriends. Ah, right? Scare. Ah. But in person, you would want to meet them. So what a great extension to add it to the online one. So she said that, and kudos to whatever relationship they had because the kid asked, the connectivity was there. So the teen says to the boy, yeah, you just have to meet my mom. And guess what? She never heard from the boy again. So maybe that was a 14-year-old boy and he was just like, oh, I didn't want to meet the mom. And that's age appropriate and that's okay. Or maybe it was something else altogether. And instead of the mom saying, no, you can't do this, and the kid hiding it, she did it and she learned something. Boys might be interested and not show up because everybody gets nervous, or there's other people out there trying to manipulate folks. And I just kind of saw that. So a really great teachable moment there. Reporting cybertip.ca, we all have the duty to report when young people are at risk. And we don't need to know that young people are in danger. We just need to worry that they are or be concerned, and we should be reporting these things. And you can do that if it's, you can do it through cybertip.ca. You can do it through child protection if there's an immediate concern, especially if in the home. But we do have a duty to report there. I remember the kids want to talk about it because when I talk about it, there's not enough time to talk about it. This is what CyberTip looks like when you go there. And I often say cybertips.ca, and I've even typed that in before, and it doesn't even direct you here. It's just an error. So if you get an error, please know, Google it because you might just have it in wrong. So this is what the site looks like. And so when I go and I do this presentation with youth, I actually bring up the site and we go through the reporting mechanism together without pressing submit. Like I just put blah, blah, blah in the thing so they could see each page. So that's something that you could do too. Because of course, when we go in that trauma brain and we're not thinking and processing things, we might not remember how to get there, or maybe it seems scary, so we're not going to go do it. But if you do it in advance, it's really accessible to them and they know it's easy, and it actually is super easy. So there's the report button. You can see it in red. So increasing the protective factors, talk about healthy relationships, talk about consent, talk about boundaries, model it, teach it, feel it. And if you're not modeling it, talk about why it's hard sometimes to maintain healthy relationships. Normalize that. Man, it's hard. We have expectations. We have bills. Like, do you feel good more than you don't feel good? Really talk about what that feels like because it's a teachable moment. And when we're talking about boundaries, I always just really reiterate that people talk about how it feels to put a boundary in place. Because if you've ever actually put a boundary in place, it feels awful, especially with the people we're close to. So let's say you have not a great relationship with your mom or your dad or brother, whoever it is, and you have to say like, no, you can't come over for Christmas anymore. It's going to feel terrible, right? And us being hyper polite Canadians, we probably go, so sorry. Ooh, are you okay? maybe we want to remove the boundary that we just were so brave to put in place. We need to talk about these things, or we're not modeling how to put in a boundary in a super effective way that's going to lead to good outcomes. Putting in a boundary is really uncomfortable. And I often say, like, you don't actually have to be so polite putting in a boundary. And if someone's challenging your boundary, you don't have to be like, you can just protect your boundary, whatever way you need to. Now, if you like the person who's kind of crossing your boundary and you want to maintain a relationship, how can we do that in a respectful way? Safety planning. What is your youth's vulnerability? Know it and plan safety around it. Safety plan. So youth, if you go out and party or you sneak out of the house when you're sleeping, let's talk about what you could do if that happens and you don't feel safe. Safety plan from their vulnerability, offline and online. Lots of folks know the safety plan. Nobody's safety plans for online. So make an online safety plan and an offline safety plan. When you are making rules about the internet in your home, connect, sit around the supper table, say, these are my hopes for your internet use. Tell me your hopes for your internet use, the rule list. And so if the rules are broken, what's going to be the outcome? And decide together, these are the consequences. So that if they go and break the rules, they don't have to hide it because the internet's going to be taken away. They know exactly what's going to happen because you decided together. You're maintaining connectivity. Positive self-esteem, I really want to say, is one of the biggest things to invest in. So I've worked with young people for over 20 years, and some of those youth, I have kids and youth I've worked with for huge chunks of time, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15 years. Youth I've worked with longevity like that, the ones that initially showed low self-esteem and it wasn't addressed well enough, the poor outcomes is never something to not give good attention to, because like, oh, like bigger fish to fry or whatever. There's so much going on, especially with these vulnerable kiddos. Low self-esteem is an awesome starting place. Never downgrade it, because it sticks around and then someone will feed that in bad ways in the coming years. One more thing, I know we're right at where we're going to start question time here, to leave you with is address the fact that everyone's not sending nudes. So when I was like, when we start the first year that we had the Brave project, we had amazing training budget, because you have to actively always be training and learning in this realm because it's so incredibly nuanced. And that's where I learned that you start to think everyone's being trafficked. I also thought all the nudes or all the youth were sending nudes, and like so grateful that that was not a thing in my youth. Like for anybody my age and older, you had to have an older brother or friend's older brother, and where he was hiding like a porno magazine somewhere in the house if you were ever going to see a nude. Like it was like on paper hidden somewhere. That is not the case for young people. I worked with 6-year-olds who were addicted to pornography, and I mean addicted to pornography, and would access it within minutes, seconds, if the caregiver left the room, like to go to the fridge, open the fridge, and come back, and the kid would be accessing it. So that happens really young, but they're all not sending nudes. But I had this reference point, like, oh my gosh, they're all sending nudes. How'd the world get like this? So they're not. The research actually says that about 10 to 30% are, which is absolutely not everybody is. It's not even half. But the youth have a very similar mindset too, that they all are. So we can let them know that actually that's not the case. And we need to base it, like I said earlier, bringing up news stories and first-hand accounts of youth telling stories. Those are the way to reach the youth. And that's a good one to address, because they will feel less pressured to send the nude when they realize that everybody's not sending the nude. So there are some of the resources we went through tonight. I'll also say that you're going to get a follow-up email. Need Help Now, Cyber Tip, and those other ones, Protect Kids Now and Don't Get Sextorted. You can get to them from Cyber Tip and Need Help Now. They're kind of like the mother sites, if you will. Kids Help Phone, for those who haven't used it in 20 years or haven't heard of it in 20 years. It's not just a hotline anymore. They have a super amazing website. You can message them, text them. They speak a million languages. You can call them. So if you haven't been there in a while, check out the website, go there with your youth. It's pretty comprehensive. I know you guys are going to get a feedback form from the Adoption Foundation, but here's one that would specifically come to me. You'll get this in the slides. You could take a picture with your cell phone now, And there'll be another one that I hope you'll do for the Adoption Foundation as well. But this one will come specifically to me about the content. And I take the content to heart and I edit and I modify. If you have suggested resources, like please give me some good feedback there if you can. Again, it's pretty short and it just takes a few minutes. We're on social media. You can follow us, tell your youth to follow us. You can bring us into your organization for a presentation. You can refer youth to our mentoring program. So the mentoring program, working directly with the youth. We go into a lot of schools. We do groups, presentations all the time, but we also work one-on-one. So a youth will get paired with a mentor who's a Brave YW staff. The age is 11 to 19, but we're quite flexible with that. It's for girls and gender diverse youth, but if it's a boy you want to refer, we always just say reach out because we'll navigate the system with you and see what other resources they could access if they can't access ours. We also offer needs assessment, so it doesn't need to be like, I want to put my kid in the program, but there's no way they're going to join the program. We could just talk about what's going on. Sometimes we have youth referred and I never meet the youth, we never meet the youth, but we support the parent through that child's referral. And that's something we offer as well. So we always say the YW is the right door for everyone. Because if we can't meet your need, we're going to see what's out there for you. So reach out. We are there, and I'll end here so we can open the floor to any questions that might be out there.